Welcome to College Football Week 9 predictions. We'll start with tomorrow's game between Cal and Virginia Tech at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Virginia Tech is a 2.5 point favorite. Cal has a shot to go to bowl eligible, but they're going on the road on a Friday game. Again, they already done this last week against the Tar Heels. Now they got to go on the road, play Virginia Tech. Give me Cal to get bowl eligible. Cal wins by 4. On Saturday, UCLA taking on number 2 ranked Indiana at 12 p.m. Eastern on Fox. Indiana is a 24.5 point favorite. This probably is way too high, but it makes sense because they're playing UCLA, who, as Kurt Cinetti said, they're 3-0 in conference. They're 3-0 in the conference, Big Ten. Big surprise so far this year. But Indiana has been very impressive this season, 7-0, and they have a legitimate shot at the Big Ten title game, which would be played in Indianapolis, Indiana, which will be cool to see all the red in Lucas Oil Stadium. Give me Indiana by 25. 8th ranked Ole Miss taking on 13th ranked Oklahoma at 12 p.m. Eastern on ABC. Oklahoma is a 4.5 point favorite. This has got to be a real interesting game. Brent Venables and Lane Kiffin, who is the hottest candidate for the Florida Gator head coaching job, which I know Ole Miss fans don't want to talk about that. I get it. But Ole Miss is on maybe linked to the Gators job. But focus on Ole Miss. Coming off a tough loss to Georgia on the road. They got to go back on the road again to take on Oklahoma, who showed flashes against South Carolina. Very impressive there. But this is going to be the battle between quarterbacks and the coaches because both Brent Venables calls the defense and Lane Kiffin calls the offense. So it's the smart versus smart kind of game. I'm going to take Ole Miss to go to Norman and upset Oklahoma. Ole Miss by 5. 16th ranked Virginia taking on UNC at 12 p.m. Eastern on ACC Network. Virginia is a 9.5 point favorite. Boy, you want to talk about this game? Yeah, nobody wants to talk about the Tar Heels despite their 2-4. But Virginia, they got a chance to control their destiny to the ACC title game. How's that, Virginia fans? Because there's a chance you go into the ACC title game in Charlotte. But they have to win their big-time games and conference ones. So give me Virginia by 10. 18th ranked South Florida taking on Memphis at 12 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. South Florida is a 3.5 point favorite. Why is this game very important? Well, first off, South Florida are undefeated in conference, going up against Memphis, who last week lost to UAB. And they're in a must-win game to keep their American Athletic Conference Championship hopes alive and maybe potentially get into that college football playoffs. I have South Florida winning this game in Memphis. They win by 2. Kansas State taking on Kansas at 12 p.m. Eastern on TNT. Kansas is a 2.5 point favorite. Old school rivalry between two states that know each other very well. Right. Kansas, 2 wins away to get bowl eligible, while for Kansas State, they got 3 wins to get to bowl eligible. So there's a difference right there. There's always a good rivalry between these two, but in the Big 12, anything is possible. So give me Kansas winning it by 1 point. Auburn taking on Arkansas at 12:45 p.m. Eastern on SEC Network. Arkansas is a 1.5 point favorite. Of course, Arkansas having a brutal loss against Texas A&M despite coming back 45-42. Auburn, yeah, they went to a 2-game overtime and lost to Missouri at home. brutal one for them. I have Auburn winning it. They get back on track. They go 4-4. Auburn wins by 4. Number 4, Alabama taking on South Carolina at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on ABC. Alabama is a 13.5-point favorite. And you should say yes. It makes sense because they're playing South Carolina. And they're not playing good football, by the way. They're 3-4 this year. Nobody expect that to go in the right direction. Bama is 6-1. They're on a hot streak. Can they keep it going to keep their destiny of an SEC title game into Atlanta? I think they keep it going. Bama wins by 14. 15th ranked Missouri taking on 10th ranked Vanderbilt at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Vanderbilt is a 2.5-point favorite. What a story for Vanderbilt. Get this for the Commodore fans. You're going to get College Game Day coming to Nashville. You got Missouri coming in town. Of course, their head coach is linked to the Florida Gator job, and so is Vanderbilt's head coach, because it makes sense. Hey, these two coaches are really good. This is going to be an all-quarterback showdown. Bo Pagliaro going up against Diego Pavi. Which quarterback will get the ball last, win the game? I have Vanderbilt winning this by 1 point. 11th ranked BYU taking on Iowa State at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on Fox. Iowa State is a 2.5-point favorite against the undefeated BYU Cougars, who are coming off a huge win against Utah in the Holy War. Yeah, I agree. Iowa State upsets. They win by 3. 23rd ranked Illinois taking on Washington at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on Big Ten Network. Washington is a 4.5-point favorite. This is the first time these two met since 2014. And now things have changed from 2014 to 2025. Illinois, they're trying to get back on track. Of course, there's some what's going on right now. All that being said. But Washington came off with a tough loss to Michigan. Embarrassing. This has got to be a rebound game being played in Washington. And if the weather impacts Illinois, I think this could be Washington's game. Washington wins by 4. Then you got one of the more interesting games to watch. I would watch this one. Minnesota going up against Iowa at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on CBS. Iowa is an 8.5-point favorite, and Iowa's coming off a huge win against Penn State at home. They're going to welcome Minnesota, who they're looking very good in that 5-2 record. Both teams have a chance to clinch bowl eligible. One of them has to win, and this is a tough game, by the way, guys, because boy, Iowa is a special place to go for a college football game. But let me tell you, I have the Minnesota Gophers to go over there and upset Iowa. Minnesota wins by 4. Baylor taking on the 21st ranked, yes, Cincinnati Bearcats at 4 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. Cincinnati is a 5.5-point favorite against the Bears of Baylor. And this is a special moment for Cincinnati. We'll give it a moment of congratulations. Congratulations, Cincinnati. You're now ranked for the first time in a long, long time. Let's go, Bearcats. Give me Cincinnati beating Baylor by 5. 22nd ranked Texas taking on Mississippi State at 4:15 p.m. Eastern on SEC Network. Texas is a 6.5-point favorite, and here's why this is low. They're going to Mississippi State, a team that is 4-3, and they have a chance to go bowl eligible. They just need 2 wins to do it. And boy, against Texas, their biggest home game in Mississippi State history, not happening. Texas wins by 4. Then the game of the week. This is the game of the week. Number 3, Texas A&M going up against the 20th ranked LSU Tigers at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ABC. Texas A&M is a 2.5-point favorite. A&M They control their destiny to an SEC title game, of course, after Ole Miss lost last week. Bama is still winning. Georgia's right behind them. But A&M, undefeated in the conference and undefeated season, they still find ways to win. Going up against LSU, who it seems that Brian Kelly is on the hot seat, of course, after their loss to Vanderbilt on the road. And this is more of a must-win game for LSU program, but a must-win game for a must-win game for Brian Kelly. Because if he doesn't win this game, maybe LSU moves on with him. And if they do, LSU could be one of those big jobs, just like Florida and Penn State. Here, being played in Badgeroo, that is going to be a tough place to play. But these two have played each other last year. Texas A&M took control on the running game, and Marcel Reed using his legs and arms against the LSU defense. So with that being said, I have Texas A&M going on the road, take down the mighty LSU Tigers. They win by 4. Then 25th ranked Michigan taking on Michigan State at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on NBC. Michigan is a 13.5 point favorites. Michigan coming off a dominant win against Washington. It goes across this not too far. Their old rivals, Michigan State, who lost to UCLA toughly. And yeah, Jonathan Smith should be under pressure, by the way. Going up against Michigan, not easy. Michigan wins by 14. Then, for the first time ever in this channel's history, or predictions video history, I have a FCS prediction game here. North Dakota State, undefeated, going up against South Dakota State, undefeated. 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPNU. Now, you might be thinking, why we're talking about this game and not an FBS school? Well, here's why. These two have great history. The Bison and the Jackrabbits. They have history. And when you're going in that game and it's a rivalry, boy, anything is possible. But let's talk about it. North Dakota State and South Dakota State, maybe the future FBS promotion teams that can join in, maybe the Mountain West or the Pac-12, or maybe the Big 12. That would be a nice conference for both of them. But this is going to be a fun one. Being played in South Dakota State, you cannot underestimate the spirit of the Jackrabbits. However, the Bison have been controlling that conference. Give me the North Dakota State Bisons winning it by 2 points. Houston taking on 24th ranked Arizona State at 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. Arizona State is an 8.5 point favorite after beating the undefeated Texas Tech Red Raiders. Okay, impressive win. Eyebrows are for showing me impressive. Going up against the Houston Cougars, who should celebrate their bowl eligible last week. Congratulations to Hugh Freeze, the head coach of Houston, and plus Connor Weckman, who was transferred from Texas A&M to Houston, and look what he did for Houston, getting them to a bowl eligible. I like Houston winning this one. Houston wins it by 4. And finally, Colorado taking on Utah at 10:15 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Utah's at 15.5 point favorites. Utah lost big in the Holy War against BYU. They'll look to respond back against Colorado. You know what? Utah wins by 14. That's it for my college football week 9 predictions. If you have not seen my other videos, go check them out on my channel. Of course, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell for more sports news.